I'll be over at 10, you told me time and again, but you're late. I waited around and then I run to the door. I can't take anymore. It's not you. You let me down again. Baby, baby, try to find a little time and I'll make you happy. I'll be home. I'll be beside the phone waiting for you.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Brew Crew Review. We have a special edition for you today as we're doing our annual amateur draft preview as first Tuesday in June. The Brewers will be conducting their 2006 amateur draft. And so for you today, we have a special guest in the studio, and that's Patrick Ebert from brewerfan.net is here joining us. And also we have our in-house minor league analyst, and that's Brandon Miller. So we're here, and we're going to go over some of that stuff. But before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about Brewers baseball. The Brewers have been, much of the second half of last year, hovering around the 500 mark here as we approach the end of May and into June. So let's talk a little bit about their play. First of all, what do you guys think as far as the Brewers? What areas of improvement do you think the Brewers need to do? What do you see as what we've already improved on from last year, and where we need to improve to get way over the 500 mark and possibly contend for the wild card race coming into the later months of this season?
Well, obviously we're hitting a lot more consistently than we did, especially at the beginning of last year. So that's big time help. The areas of improvement are pretty obvious. Defense for one, way too many errors this year, and way too many little mistakes like not hitting the cutoff man and such. And another area would be our fourth and our fifth starter. It's a struggle to get wins in both of those positions. I think if we can shore up, I think Evil maybe fine at 4. I think we need to find a way to shore up 5. And if we do that, shore up 4 and 5, it's going to help everything. It's going to help our bullpen, and we won't have to score as many runs to win those games.
Okay. Patrick, what are your thoughts on the season so
Yeah,
far?
I mean, I got to agree with everything that Brandon already outlined. I mean, the hitting has been a lot better this year. I mean, Prince Fielder, no one expected him to contribute this fast, this furious, basically. A little bit of slump right now, but you know he's going to come out of that, I mean, the way he started. The errors have got to end, you know, at some point. Ricky Weeks' mistakes and even Prince Fielder's mistakes. But, you know, they're young, so you give them a little patience. Pitching, same thing. You know, the injuries to Sheets and to Oka and even to Rick Helling are really hurting us right now because, you know, Rick Helling normally would be the guy that would fill in for an injury to Oka or Sheets. And so we don't have that fallback plan, and we're falling back on plans like Ben Hendrickson, who's not doing so well. So, you know, they keep hitting, they're winning big, and they're just a lot more exciting to watch this year. So
yeah, I think the fans are really fired up this year because of the injection of youth. I think that's led by Fielder. I think stepping in, even replacing a guy like Orbe Shoes, who was a fan favorite, stepping right in and producing right off the bat. Of course, he started off the year with a bunch of strikeouts and not a hit like in his first 10 at bats. But within the week, he had already won the fans over. So yeah, I think that especially at the beginning of the season, the fans are a little bit more impatient than as the year runs on. And so I think Prince really solidified himself as a fan favorite right from the get-go. But yeah, I agree with what you guys said. Pretty much our starting pitching has become problematic. And you made a great point, Patrick. That so-called sixth starter, our long reliever to start the season, someone who was supposed to be Rick Helling, someone who filled in as a starter when we needed him last year very admirably, is such a valuable asset to a Major League Baseball team. It's really underrated, that type of position, because when you think about it, over the course of a long season, I can name very few teams, Major League Baseball teams, that have spent the whole year with no injuries to any of their starting pitchers. So you always need a very quality sixth guy, and with Helling injured for this part of the year, we've been missing that. And of course, the Sheets injury, that really is a key to our success. I think we need him back healthy, and it's very frustrating dealing, and I'm sure it is for himself, to have to deal with all these injuries that have been coming up. And I think hopefully he can get healthy by the middle of June and contribute for the rest of the season and remain off the disabled list. But also the injury to Oka, again, that's another player that I think we really realize how much we underappreciate him. But not having him in there, we've had to rely on younger pitchers by calling up Dana Evelyn, Ben Hendrickson, who's already been sent down, and he did not fare too well up here again in his second trial with the club. And that's just too bad. And of course, Dana Eveland, he was spent some valuable time, major league experience with the club last year, and in the bullpen, and they sent him back to Nashville AAA to start the season. And he was pitching great down there. He had an ERA under 1 in 5 starts, I believe, down there. So. But he came up to Major League level, and he's going to struggle because, in all in all, he's still almost a rookie pitcher. He's very young, and he's got a lot to learn. So for a team that's hoping to contend, it's really tough to have to deal with pitchers like that. And by not having that a decent fifth starter, I think that's one question we have to throw out there is, what are the Brewers going to do? I think it's what we saw very recently. I think it's a need they need to address like almost immediately. So do you guys have any thoughts on what we're going to do with that spot until Sheets comes back to be healthy? And that's not a guarantee that he's going to come back in the middle of June either. So I think this is something we really need to address. Helling, I don't think there's no timetable for him to come back. Oka won't be back for a while. I think out of the three of them, Sheets might be the most hopeful to come back soon. But from now until then, what do you think the Brewers, what are their options? Or if you were, the general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers and Melvin Shoes, what options would you try to explore, from our minor leagues or possibly via trade? Do you guys see any possibility on what we do to fill in that spot vacated by, recently demoted Ben Hendrickson?
Well, I heard Helling's feeling a lot better. He's ready to start throwing off the mound. So I think he's, maybe a month or so away. But then again, they don't have a timetable for him. I know Sheets just had an MRI today, actually. More of a thing to prove to himself that he's not injured and that he can start going at it at accelerated pace again. As of right now, I think De La Rose is looking like our best option. He's been pitching very well out of the bullpen. He came in on Saturday night after Hendrickson couldn't record an out and got through 4 innings pretty well. The fifth, he started to struggle, but that's to be expected as he's still getting stretched out. So I think that could be the next step would be to start him, try to stretch him out a little bit more, maybe have him pitch 4 or 5 innings and bring in someone like Wise to pitch another couple innings. Or we could explore a trade as well, but at this time of the year, it's hard to trade for quality starting pitching at this point of the year.
Yeah. Pedro, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, we talked before, I think De La Rosa is the best in-house option. I mean, his stuff's been so good. He's been pitching so much better. He's commanded his stuff so much better. Get his arm stretched out, see what he can do. I mean, he doesn't seem to be getting the time in the bullpen that he deserves. Find a way to get him in as a starter. And at the same time, don't give up patience on Dana Evelyn. Don't let these first 2, starts, affect your long-range plan. Just, stick with him. If we're still talking about this, after 6 starts and he's still getting hit around pretty well, then think about something else.
Yeah.
But I'd be patient for him through about 5, 6 starts and see what he can do. And if nothing's improving, then back to the drawing board. So. Yeah,
I very much agree with what you said. And for people who don't really follow either the pitchers that are coming up through the minors, whatever, I think that the Brewers will have a much longer leash on someone like Dana Evelyn than they do on Ben Hendrickson because I think Dana Evelyn showed him something out of the bullpen last year that he's got major league quality stuff and he just needs the experience and he will become a quality player. I firmly believe that. And a good starter. And that's something they're looking for. And as far as Hendrickson goes, I think that this might have been one of his last opportunities with the club. He was a AAA All-Star pitcher just a few years ago. He came up and he kind of proved that year he couldn't retire major league batters. And I think that they wanted to give him one more shot. And I think his opportunity, unfortunately, might have been his last opportunity to really prove to the club that he could fill a role like that. So I think he is someone we're looking to replace. And even like you said, Patrick, I foresee us sticking with him almost the entire year, even if Sheets comes back, at least until Oka would come back, if he does pitch for the Brewers again. I think Evelyn will keep that spot in the rotation. So, yeah, those are good options. I like what you guys said about De La Rosa, too, because I think He's just put in that situation. We acquired him from Arizona originally in that Lyle Overbay trade, and he was a promising prospect that was thought to have a future as a starting pitcher. But because of the fact that he ran out of options, we weren't able to send him back to the minor leagues to let him more fully develop. He's been kind of stuck in a pseudo bullpen role as a long reliever and not necessarily being trusted as a short reliever as a left-hander by Ned Yost, but then again not having a secured spot in the starting rotation. So he was kind of left there and not being used, I think, not only effectively but minimally by Ned Yost, and so he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And now I think this might be a good opportunity finally for him if they can stretch him out. Like you said, it might have even been a blessing in disguise, the fact that Ben Hendrickson had a very short outing, obviously not even recording it, but an out. But we were talking about the game, of course, on May 19th against Minnesota Twins. But I think that so you're right. De La Rosa came in and he's starting to stretch himself out by pitching four plus innings. And if the next time we need our fifth starter, if he can go 5 solid innings, and I think we'll let it get to our bullpen, and maybe that'll be the course we go. And if I had to guess anything, I think that's what we'll go from here on. But if the opportunity comes up either on the waiver wire or maybe a trade for some type of veteran, I know like someone mentioned to me today that the Royals recently released Joe Mays, who's like a journeyman. At least he's a veteran, possibly could eat up some innings, but I wouldn't want to go that route. I just don't think that he's a quality major league player. So I don't want to really stoop to that level. I want to maybe see what we have in-house and give them an opportunity. I think De La Rosa warrants that opportunity, and hopefully he gets it. But we'll see from there. Other than that, I think we really, more than anything, need to get healthy. Sheets, then Helling, or in whatever order, and then Oka. Once that comes back, I think that we've proven that for the whole season, I think we're going to have one of the best offenses in the National League, as we already have the numbers to back that up. So another topic I wanted to get to is that Carlos Lee. There's been talks that Carlos Lee, and he's been a phenomenal, putting up all-star numbers so far, this far into the season. This is the last year of his contract, and there's been talk that negotiations have already started with Carlos Lee. What do you guys, if you were, Mark Antonazzi, the owner, would you really make an effort to lock up Carlos Lee long term, and or like how much would you be willing to give him as far as length of contract and how much money? Or do you think with our options in the minor leagues, like, of course, Nelson Cruz, Corey Hart, even on our bench, Gabe Gross, and these guys could be starting corner outfielders as soon as later in the season or next year. What would you guys want to do with Carlos Lee? How much would you be willing to give him as a contract? How valuable is he to the Milwaukee Brewers? Should we keep him, or should we let him go and get something for him?
This is an issue I've kind of gone back and forth on against myself lately. But the more I think about it, the more I start to realize that Carlos Lee's the type of hitter that you need in a lineup, especially a lineup filled with young, inexperienced guys. You need that type of veteran leadership. And not only that, he changes the way everyone in our lineups pitch to 2 through 7 for the most part. So I think at this point, it's someone we really would need to lock up, and it would be great if we could lock him up for a 1 or 2 year deal, because I do think Corey Hart will be a pretty viable hitter, if not Nelson Cruz. I know Nelson Cruz may be a little bit more ready than Corey Hart right now. It's debatable. But I do think he's the type of hitter you need in your lineup, and I hate to see us get rid of our best veteran hitter and bring in young guys. I don't want that to become a trend where we just keep bringing in younger talent, and then it's always we're waiting for the next year to start to win. So I think it's a guy we need to try to lock up for a couple of years.
Yeah. Patrick, what are your thoughts on Carlos Lee?
I mean, the timing is everything with this one. I mean, it's the Brewers are getting to the point where they're in win now mode. So I mean, it's most other years leading up to this would be he'd be the Nets' Richie Sexton. We try to get the best package of young players that we can for him. But can they afford to do that now? I mean, Corey Hart and Nelson Cruz both look like they could fill in, but what if they can't? We don't know that for sure. They've had great numbers leading up to this level, but what if they just can't make those adjustments at the big league level? You're banking on that a lot if you let if you let Lee go, either by trade or for free agency or anything like that. I don't know about a contract extension. I don't know if I see the team putting that much money into him. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm starting to think that he won't be traded. I kind of thought that at one point. If anything, I think he leaves via free agency, and at worst they get a couple draft picks out of it. But I don't think we'll see this contract extension wrapped up anytime soon. So
I guess we'll see, but. Good discussion, guys, on the Brewers, and hopefully we can keep up our winning ways and push ourselves over the 500 mark, and so we don't have to worry about hovering around it like we did for much of last year. So, but in the meantime, we've of course got the amateur draft coming up again this June. So we're going to come back and have a long special segment about previewing the Brewers draft and go over each. Brandon and Patrick brought a mock draft of the first 16 pick leading up to the Brewers pick, the 16th pick in the first round of this year's draft. So we'll talk about that, and so stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the Brew Crew Review. Again, we have a special edition for you, and this is our 2006 Amateur Draft Preview Show. And with us once again is our special guest, Patrick Ebert from BrewerFan.net and Perfect Game, and Brandon, our in-house minor league analyst here at the Brew Crew Review. And we're going to go over some of their projected mock drafts for the first round, leading up to the Brewers pick, number 16. And let me point out that that's the lowest the Brewers have picked in the first round, quite a long time, obviously, with us reaching 500 last year. We picked now in the middle of the first round rather than toward the top. Brewer fans that have been following the draft recently might be used to us picking the top 10, if not the top 5, in most of the previous years. And, of course, it's easier then to project who would be still available when the Brewers pick because of the fact that there's someone you can target. So it's a little bit trickier not only for scouting director Zach Zorensic to see who's going to be available in the first round, but of course for us to try to project who exactly is going to be left or who the Brewers could be targeting. But with that being said, also, of course, the amateur baseball draft, unlike the NBA draft, the NFL draft, which gets ridiculous 2-day weekend coverage, the baseball draft in Major League Baseball really gets very little airplay. And it's probably because of the fact that, fans, don't get to see these players, the next year, like in football or NBA, the player gets drafted, next year they're already making an impact with their team. Here, it's not quite as an exact science with the amateur baseball draft. These players are picked out of high school or college, and a lot of times won't see the major leagues for 3 to 6 years. So it's hard for fans to get really excited about, casual fans that is, about the draft. And I think that's, I've heard a little bit less talk about the Brewers draft this year because of the fact they're picking a little bit lower. And not only that, but I think it's because the Brewers are performing well at the major league level. Finally, the focus is a little bit off our minor league system and draft pick, and finally onto our club, which of course is how it really should be. But this is of course very interesting to see how it's, no one knows where the Brewers are going to be at for 4 or 5 years from now, and the players that get picked in this draft are going to be impacting the team at that time. So it is a very important day, and that's the first Tuesday in June, the Major League Baseball player draft. So we're going to talk a little bit mostly about who the Brewers might be targeting with that first round pick. But before we do that, let's go over our mock draft and first see what other Major League Baseball teams will do. The Kansas City Royals finished with the worst record in baseball last year with the #1 overall pick. We'll start with that, go all the way down through our top 15 picks. We'll leave off at the Brewers, and we'll come back and talk about who they may be looking to select. So Patrick, you're the expert on this. Why don't you go ahead and go through your mock draft, your top 15 projected first round this year's amateur draft.
Okay. Well, the first, you mentioned the Royals have the first pick. They're reportedly looking at 3 college pitchers. They're looking at Tim Lincecum, who's a right-hander from the University of Washington. They're looking at Andrew Miller, who's arguably the top player in this draft, who's from the University of North Carolina. And they're looking at Brad Lincoln, who's a right-hander from the University of Houston. Lincoln, I think, is probably just in there kind of just like as a fallback plan in case they decide last minute that they don't want to spend a lot of money. Miller is probably going to be asking for $5.5 million, so that may cause them to look more at Tim Lincecum, who'd be my pick for their selection. He's a shorter righty, but he throws gas. He has a big curveball. He's added a slider and a changeup to his repertoire. Fiery kid, good leader, everything you want in a player. Just is he the #1 pick? I would argue no. I mean, that's Miller's spot. He's been the #1 prospect, basically since he left high school. He was supposed to be a first-round pick coming out of high school, but had some lofty bonus demands back then. So I'll take Tim Lincecum first. Colorado Rockies pick second. I'm going to take Evan Longoria. I think they're going to pass on Miller. They've been working out Longoria pretty hard at second base. They like him a lot, and I think that's who they're going to stick by their guns and stick to the man, even if Miller falls. If Miller falls, I have him going to the Devil Rays at the third spot. They actually drafted him out of high school, I believe, in the third round.
Yeah.
And they didn't sign him. A couple other players that they're looking at includes Longoria. If Longoria falls, if the Rockies take Miller, Longoria would probably be their pick there. Otherwise, Lincoln and California right-hander Brandon Morrow would also be in discussion for the third pick. The fourth pick with the Pittsburgh Pirates, you're probably looking at the next guy that falls, which is Brad Lincoln. Hard-throwing right-hander from the University of Houston. Gets a lot of comparisons to Ben Sheets. He throws in the low to mid-90s, has a hammer curveball. He's not the tallest of players. He tore it up on the Cape Cod League last summer. So I would pick him to go to the Pirates. They're also talking Brandon Morrow, Greg Reynolds, a really tall right-hander from University of Stanford, and Kyle Drabeck, who's the son of Doug Drabeck, Cy Young Award winner, I think, back in 1990 or 91. The fifth pick to the Seattle Mariners, I have a little bit of a curveball. I have Luke Hochevar, who was a highly rated pick from a year ago. He fell to the supplemental round where the Dodgers took him. He had some really bizarre contract negotiations in the fall and leading into the winter. He's now playing semi-pro ball or independent league ball, I believe, and he's pitching quite well. I've had a couple people tell me that he is arguably the best player available for this draft, and that includes Andrew Miller. So Seattle Mariners, they're probably not going to let that price tag scare them away too much. They usually have the money to spend on stuff like this, and if he's there, I think that's who'll be their man. Detroit Tigers, I've heard recently that they really like Texas Longhorn center fielder Drew Stubbs, who is just a world-class athlete. He runs, he can throw. The big thing, though, with his hitting, I mean, he's got big power, but he doesn't make very good contact, and he strikes out too much. If I were the Tigers, they've also reportedly been very hot on a prep left-handed pitcher by the name of Clayton Kershaw, who's 6'5", 210, perfect body, throws mid-90s, hammer curveball. So that'll be my pick for them. Kershaw is also drawing a lot of interest from the next team picking, which is the Los Angeles Dodgers. So if the Tigers do take Stubbs or someone else, Kershaw would be the pick for the Dodgers. But I'm going to have the Dodgers taking Jeremy Jeffress, who is only the second high school pitcher on record to reach 100 miles per hour. The first one being Colt Griffin, who created such a stir. What was that, back in 2001, I believe?
Yeah, and he got picked by the Royals. It just never panned out, though.
Yeah, and then, that's all he had was a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, and he didn't have much else. Jeffress, I have seen him pitch. He's got a good makings of a slider. He's got just an electric arm. He commands the strike zone fairly well. He's raw, but
and he's out of high school from what state?
I believe he's either Virginia or I think Virginia. I think Halifax High School rings a bell. So he's my pick for them. Cincinnati Reds. If Drew Stubbs falls this far, they are reportedly all over him. So he would probably be their pick at the 8th overall pick if he's there. Otherwise, they're in the mix for Clayton Kershaw. Tim Lincecum's name could come into play here if he doesn't go first overall. And they also reportedly like Brandon Morrow. Cincinnati Reds are one team that you would think would take a pitcher no matter what. But then this is the baseball draft. You take the best available player.
Yep. You
don't pick for need because you never know what's going to happen. That said, the Reds, they should be taking pitchers until they get their pitching staff.
Exactly.
Basically. So. Number 9 is the Orioles, one of the more interesting teams that picks in the top 10. They seem to have been there the past 5 years, and they always seem to take a name that just kind of makes people go, what? Who is that? So, I'll say a name. I got him taking Billy Rowell, who's a third baseman from New Jersey. Big, 6'5". He's drawn some comparisons to Troy Glaus. Hits from the left side of the plate. Big-time power. Another player I've had the pleasure of seeing personally, and I think he could be special. Again, Tim Lincecum's name is associated with the Orioles, as is Jeremy Jeffress. The Giants, I have them taking Brandon Morrow, who pitches in their backyard at Cal Berkeley. He's this guy, throws really hard, throws in the mid to upper 90s. He was used as a reliever up until this year. He has a nasty split-finger fastball. He has an improving slider. He has a pretty good changeup. He's getting better with his command. and he's moving up. They're in the mix for. This is when you start team. It's harder to project from 10 down because there's so many team guys.
Yeah.
Because like you said, when the Brewers picked in the top 5, you'd have a pretty good idea who they're going to take. Now the Giants, I've heard they're looking at Daniel Bard, a righty from North Carolina, Matt Antonelli, a third baseman from Wake Forest, Kyle Drabeck, who I mentioned before, and Chris Marrero, a third baseman from Miami High School. Diamondbacks, I haven't taken Greg Reynolds. They are reportedly all over college pitching, as they should be. They've been focusing heavy on hitters the past couple of years. They've gotten some good ones.
Great system that they've built, really, yeah.
I mean, Stephen Drew and Justin Upton, Connor Jackson, Carlos Kenton, the hitters they got in their system, I mean, if they can get some pitching, I think the Diamondbacks are a team to watch, and I think Greg Reynolds would be that pick. They're also hot on Nebraska righty Joba Chamberlain and a sinker baller from Long Beach State, Jared Hughes. Texas Rangers, I have them looking at 3 guys all in state, or actually 2 guys in state and one other name that's popped up with them. Kyle Drabeck, I've already mentioned. Drew Stubbs is another guy I've mentioned. I don't think there's any way Stubbs falls this far. He's just too good of an athlete. And a right-handed pitcher by the name of Max Scherzer, who, if it weren't for injuries, could be in the consideration with the top 3 overall picks.
Yeah.
But he's had some little arm tenderness. It's not believed to be serious, but his advisor is also Scott Boras. So
Yeah,
makes
I was
it a
going to
little
say
bit of an
there's 2
injury.
double whammies. He's got a little bit of shoulder tendonitis and Boris. But actually, that makes me, and we'll talk about this when we talk about those, maybe intrigued that he maybe could fall, because when you get that big of a talent with those, if you take a chance, I mean, but that is risky, especially the Brewers already, their history of minor league arm injuries. I don't know if they want to take, but yeah, he's an interesting, to me, it's very intriguing, that Schauser, but...
Actually, it brings an interesting point. I think all the Boris guys that are advised are going to drop this year because, you got Ian Kennedy, who's a right-hander from Southern California, and there's a couple other guys. None of them has really stepped up this year. And really, the Luke Hochevar is the only guy that you'll probably see taken in the first half of the first round.
Yeah.
And he's a carryover from last year. So I have the Rangers. I have them taking Kyle Drabeck, sticking in state, taking the son of Doug, and getting another pitcher in their system, which certainly won't hurt them. The Cubs reportedly are all over a bunch of prep bats, and this is where we may see a run of them being taken here. Travis Snyder is a big power-hitting outfielder from a Washington prep. Hank Conger, a switch-hitting, power-hitting catcher from Southern California. Chris Parmalee, who has just a fantastic batting eye. Not a lot of huge power right now. Probably, good comparison for him at this time, maybe Lyle Overbay. He also plays in Southern California. Kyler Burke, who is a two-way star at a Tennessee prep, is a big name they've been following, and then Chris Marrero again. I think the Cubs here take Travis Snyder, a big power-hitting corner outfielder that could really help their lineup in a couple of years.
Sure.
Blue Jays, with this pick, they're all about Moneyball. They're all about college players. They never take high school guys, but they are reportedly very interested in Travis Snyder, who's a high school, power-hitting outfielder. But I don't think they go that way. I think J.P. Ricciardi, he spent a lot of money this offseason getting A.J. Burnett, B.J. Ryan, and
I think he wants to return on his investment. I don't know if he's going to go with a high schooler.
Yeah, I think he goes with someone that he thinks he can get to the big leagues fast, and I think this would be the first team you see pursue a college closer, and I think that the guy that they're going to go after is right-hander by the name of Blair Erickson from UC Irvine. So has a great arm, power arm, great breaking ball too. So he could be like a guy like Chad Cordero, Houston Street. Who's the guy last year? Craig Hansen.
Yeah.
He could be pitching for the Blue Jays in September. So.
Yeah.
They are also reported interested in Matt Antonelli, who I mentioned before. Washington Nationals, second team that could surprise people taking a college closer. They're actually on record expressing that interest. From Erickson to Miami closer Chris Perez and Arizona closer Mark Melancon. They also like Joba Chamberlain, who I've mentioned before, and Jeremy Jeffress. I have them taking Chamberlain with this pick.
All right. Well, thanks, Patrick. That was some great insight on the first 15 picks. And like you said, this is not an exact science whatsoever because of the fact that you mentioned a lot of teams are looking at 4 or 5 players, which very well they should be. But if they decide, it can change the outlook of this whole draft. So the chances of any of our mock drafts being anywhere close to exactly right, but is probably very unlikely. But I think it'll be interesting to see, who is. I think the key thing that we're going to focus on is who's going to be left when the Brewers pick, and what choices are we going to have. As our scouting director Zach Stransik has to choose from, along with Doug Melvin and Gord Ash. Brandon, let's quickly go through your top 15 picks. Just if you want to mention the team and the player that you see them taking, starting with the Kansas City Royals, number 1 overall.
Okay. Number 1, Kansas City Royals. I think they will take Andrew Miller. I have the Rockies probably looking at Eva Longoria or maybe Brad Lincoln if depending on what they decide. Tampa Bay, I have them taking Brad Lincoln if he falls. The Pirates, I have taken Brandon Morrow. Seattle, Tim Lincecum. Detroit, Clayton Kershaw. LA, Jeremy Jeffries. The Reds, Kyle Drabeck. The Orioles, Bill Rowell. San Francisco, Daniel Bard. The Diamondbacks, Greg Reynolds. I heard they could take a chance on Hochevar. They dealt with Boris and Stephen Drew last year, and it worked out pretty well for him. The Rangers, Drew Stubbs. The Cubs, Ian Kennedy. The Blue Jays, Matt Antonelli. The Nationals, Blair Erickson. And then that brings us to
the Brewers. All right. So, that's very interesting. I agree with a lot of your guys' picks. Just a key on a couple of guys I would throw out there. I really do think Andrew Miller is probably one of the best players in the draft. One little note about, I know Brandon Morrow is probably going to go in the top 6 for sure. About a year ago, I did some research on who the Brewers were going to have available in the middle of the first round this year. Brandon Morrow is one of the guys I really like, but unfortunately I think he's going to be gone. But, I really like Drew Stubbs, too. I think he's either going to go in the top 10 or he might fall a little bit. But, he's a phenomenal college player as well. But, obviously, one thing I should point out, just to make this point, that this draft is really considered by scouting directors and a little bit more weak than most of the previous year's drafts. I know last year was a real strong draft, and I believe many of the other years, including the one that we, of course, got weeks, that draft was a very strong draft. So I think this one, the first round-wise, is a little bit college pitching top-heavy. Those are the less risky picks, I think, and every team, you can never have too much pitching, as every Major League team learns. So those are, of course, they're the most risky. So this will be an interesting draft, no doubt. So let's kind of focus on the Brewers picks right now. Patrick, you got probably some inside information on guys the Brewers might be looking at taking, and who might be a future Brewer here to look at the Brewers selection in the first round come first Tuesday of this June.
Well, they've a couple of the guys I've already mentioned. They're hot on. I've heard Jeremy Jeffries, the hard-throwing prep right-hander from Virginia, is somebody that they like a lot. And if he slides to them, they won't think twice before taking him.
What do you say to the casual Brewer fan who doesn't want us to see the Brewers pick a high school pitcher in the first round? Obviously, with their lack of success with players like Mike Jones, Mark Rogers has been struggling. What do you say to a casual fan that would gasp at us taking another high school pitcher with the first pick?
I'd probably agree with them because I think the track record shows. Maybe it's time to just go with the proven results. It's not there. You haven't had very good luck with them. Now, obviously, if you ignore prep pitchers completely, you're going to be missing out of some great players just over the history of baseball. But for the Brewers in recent years, it hasn't treated them particularly well. So maybe that's something they just pass on and focus more on the college side. So I think that's how I would handle that. A few other names up here. They are focusing on some college pitchers. If Daniel Bard, who I mentioned before, falls this far, he could be in the running. Jared Hughes, sinker baller pitcher from Long Beach State, also has a very good slider. Maybe right up Doug Melvin's alley. He's a guy that induces a ton of ground balls. His stats don't look particularly pretty this year, but I think you throw him in a lineup, put wood bats, in the hands of the opposing batters, and you put a good defense behind him, and he's going to get a lot of outs. Josh Butler is kind of a similar pitcher. He's from the University of San Diego. The Brewers reportedly really like him. And interestingly enough, they also have a lot of keen interest in a couple college closers this year, which would be, we talked before that, Brewer fans may not be as interested in the draft this year because their attention's more on the big league team, as it should be. Mm-hmm. So if it should be, it should be the focus on the draft to get more players up quickly. So, maybe the Brewers might target a college closer such as Blair Erickson or such as Miami's Chris Perez, both of whom is reported that Jack Cerenzic's been out to see personally. So, but I think the pick, if I had to bet right now, it would be Hank Conger, who's a switch hitting catcher from Southern California. Defense is a little bit in question. Another guy I got to see play last summer, but this guy hits the ball hard every time he takes batting practice. He hits light tower home runs in games against some of the best pitchers in the Southern California area. And you know, it reminds me a lot of a pick of Prince Fielder, because, you know, when we took Prince Fielder, they ignored all of his defense, they ignored all that other stuff, and, you know, he's too big, he's gonna eat himself out of baseball, and they just took the best hitter. And it just rings that same bell with Hank Conger. He's just an incredible hitter. He's got great power. If he can stick behind the plate, you know, give him a couple years in the minors, let him develop. And I think if the draft were held today, I think that's with accordance to our mock drafts today, I think the pick would be Hank Conger.
Oh, I really like that pick, and I agree with what you said. Especially prep bats, no matter what. Any hitter, any great hitter, even coming out of high school, I think someone, like if I were a scouting director, I'd kind of focus on prep bats and kind of get them before they go to college. And as far as pitching goes, I would kind of focus on college pitchers. But the bottom line is, and this is what I really like about Zach Cerensic, is you really can't have such a acute, unflexible philosophy going in the draft, because you really do have to take the best player available. And even though it is true the Brewers, at least they're hoping to contend now, that maybe we should target players that can help us right now. But I still personally always will agree to always take the best player regardless of college, regardless of high school, if they're coming out of high school, or regardless of pitcher or hitter. I think you take the best player when your pick is up, because, like I said, these guys aren't going to be with us probably for 3 to 6 years, and you don't know what your team makeup is going to be then. And that's exactly the Prince Fielder pick. Again, surprise some people. It was one of the picks I really loved from the past 5 years of Renzik, because of the fact that at the time we had Richie Sexton was one of our best players, and we also had Brad Nelson, who was just named the Midwest League Player of the Year. And so this obviously wasn't.
Hart too,
and we had Corey Hart in the system too. So it's like this didn't seem like a position of need, but as Renzik stuck, he's like, hey, this is the best player available, I'm going to take him. And as we see has happened since that draft, Sexton was traded for a haul of players. Brad Nelson hasn't panned out due to injuries and probably lack of talent. And Corey Hart, could have been a first base option, but now we've moved him to the outfield, which could be a successful move. He could be a successful corner outfielder, and so the job is already Prince's, and he's not going to let go of it. Hopefully, for 15, 20 years as a Brewer, that type of pick is a great pick. So yeah, I totally agree. And that's why, actually, a last year's pick, which I hope Ryan Braun, picked. We picked him 4th overall last year. I was a little bit bothered by the fact that 5th overall. By having the 5th pick, we ended up with the third best third baseman and the third baseman picked in that draft. And that's why, personally, I wanted to pick Cameron Maybin last year. Every year, and I think you have the same problem, Patrick. And for all you fans who haven't checked out the website, brewerfan.net, he does a lot of work on the draft, Patrick does, and you can read about that there at brewerfan.net. And he's under the post name of Colby Jack. And again, this is a second time he's been a guest on our show for all the fans of the show. But a little tangent there. But what I was going to say is you should check that out for sure. But what I was going to say is that you've had the same problem as me. Like, I project there's someone I always want us to think that we should pick, and of course we always pick someone else. Of course, I'm wrong half the time anyway. But I really do think that it's going to turn out that Cameron Maybin from last year is going to be a phenomenal player, and I think we're going to regret passing on him. But in his own right, hopefully Ryan Braun does prove. But that was one of the first times I saw Zrensic maybe pressured from the the new ownership, whatever, to go for a specific need rather than the best player available, in my opinion. And I think strategy that could backfire 3 or 4 years from now. I think Cameron Maybin will be a long-time All-Star, and Ryan Braun will probably be a solid Major League player, but not an All-Star, and that's the difference. But anyway, so Brandon, Hank Conger is an interesting pick to me too. I heard that he is moving up a lot of draft boards, and I'm hoping he does last with the Brewers, so at least they have that option of selecting him if that's what they choose. Brandon, what are the couple of players you see the Brewers picking, and maybe if you were Zrensic, who you'd pick with that pick?
Well, I agree with you, and I do believe that Zrensic, in a way, drafted for need last year. I'd hate to see him do it again, especially at 16. I think it'd be a pick where you just want to take strictly the best available. I know we could use some pitchers who are a little more seasoned, say a college pitcher, but if a guy like Jeremy Jeffers is available, throwing 100 miles per hour and maybe potentially, lights out stuff. It'd be nice to see him. Hank Conger is also intriguing. I especially that late, it's hard to pass on a can't miss, power hitter or all-around hitter like that. But I could see us taking a college pitcher. Max Scherzer, who could fall to us because of injuries, is an intriguing pick. Jared Hughes or Joba Chamberlain from Nebraska.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to me, it's the most practical sense that maybe we focus on a college pitcher. But again, I don't like the philosophy of focusing on anything. I think you see what's there. But of course, I think college pitcher, if we do go pitcher, would be the way to go. I like Jeremy Jeffers a lot too, but I get that, like you were mentioning about Colt Griffin before, I get the bad feeling that this is a guy who can throw fast. He does have secondary pitches already developed. He could be a phenomenal star, but there's also probably more than 50% chance that he could flame out. So I don't like to take that big of a risk with my first-round pick. But Brandon, who's your pick then? What's your selection for who the Brewers are going to take?
My pick would be Joba Chamberlain.
Joba Chamberlain from Nebraska, righty.
Correct.
I think that's one of the more safer picks out of the guys you threw out there. I think he'll be a solid contributor if he is the choice, but he doesn't have as high of an upside. I think he could be like a number 3 starter, maybe a highest ceiling, and that's okay. We do need guys like that, as we're seeing this year already. But anyway, the guys, some of the guys I like. I like Max Scherzer from the Boris client, but the shoulder tendonitis does worry me a little bit. Given our health history, I would stay away from him probably. I really like Hank Conger. He's one of the guys I really like. I actually like the is it Schneider, the guy the Cubs are focusing on?
Travis Schneider.
Yeah, Travis Schneider. I think he's going to be a phenomenal power hitter. Now, I don't know, again, this isn't a need for the Brewers, but I think if you draft him and just let him go where he wants. But the hitting will carry him to the major leagues, if that's what he can definitely do. And that's why I like Hank Conger, too, and I think the Brewer fans would be excited if we did pick a catcher, because casual Brewer fans really just always seem to be disgusted with our catching. I mean, coming in this year, I think they were just, they're so used to complaining and they couldn't find a weakness in our team. They're like, everyone just doesn't like Chad Moeller. I do, but Damian Miller, obviously this year he's put on almost all-star numbers so far. They'll probably level off. But I mean, that combo is not bad at the major league level. But the bottom line is, in our farm system, that's one of the areas we are probably a little bit weak in. I know we have Angel Salome, Lou Palmisano, who I'm a fan of, but I mean, in the long run, we don't have a really high ceiling catcher. The problem I see with Hank Conger, I have one of those suspicions that he might not stay a catcher within, by the time he makes it to the major leagues. But again, from what I heard, he can just totally rake. So I do like that pick if we go that route. But I kind of want to see us pick a college pitcher. Some of the pitchers I really like, I liked Morrow. He's going to be way gone. But the other guy I really think we're going to take is Jared Hughes. I know Doug Melvin really likes sinker ball pitchers. They play well in Miller Park. He's really ready. So again, he's from Long Beach State, who they've also had a history of putting pretty good major league pitchers in the majors. So I like that pick, Jared Hughes, but I guess we'll see how the cards fall come this June. But anyway, great discussion on that, guys. And again, we just focused in this talk on the first round, but of course there is a bunch of other rounds of the draft, and we do need to restock our entire farm system. All Major League Baseball clubs do this every year. What are some of the weaker positions or spots of need you guys see? Patrick, I'll ask you this, within the Brewer organization that we need to address in this draft, say in the top 10 picks for sure?
Hey, catching is number one in my mind. And, you mentioned, I think you guys both brought up a great point. I too agree that I think, Jack Zarenzik was maybe focusing a little more on the need last year when he took Ryan Braun. And, and then also we got Corey Koski and Billy Hall can play third, and third base is no longer a weakness anymore. So it's interesting how that works out. And there's actually Matt Gamble and a couple of Michael
Adam
Bell.
Heather.
And Adam Heather. There's a couple other guys in the minors that makes a once huge weakness into a pretty big strength.
Yeah, going into the draft last year, we had question marks like Wes Helms and Russell Brandy at third base, and very little depth at all at third base. So they were like, okay, this is a need. So they went out and got a bunch of third basemen, drafted Braun, Gamble, and stuff like that. And then of course Bill Hall proved that he's an everyday major leaguer and can play third. We acquired Corey Kostic this offseason. It's a great point, and that really illustrates the fact that I don't think you should ever draft for need, especially that high in a draft. But that being said, I don't want to badmouth Ryan Braun because I do think he's going to be a solid everyday major league player. So, there's nothing wrong with that pick. I think he'll prove to be a great Brewer one day. But anyway, but as far as the catcher's one need and anything else?
Yeah, catcher's the biggest, I think, without a doubt. And then just pitching in general. I think pitching is always a need. You could have an endless supply of pitchers, and it would still be a huge need. I mean, look at the Atlanta Braves. I mean, each year they have an all-star rotation, and every year you see them draft another pitcher in the first round, and they usually have extra picks, so they end up taking like 4 pitchers in the first round. But that's another discussion. But
Yeah.
Pitching, I go catching, pitching, and then I would say probably like a corner outfielder.
Yeah.
When you go back to the Travis Snyder or someone like that, as well.
Yeah.
So those would probably be my top 3. Would be catching, pitching, and then maybe a corner outfielder.
Yeah.
So.
And you gotta love the name Hank Conger. It sounds like a great baseball name.
He was actually named after Hank Aaron. He's Korean descent. His original name is, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but I believe it's Hyun. It's Hyun.
Yeah. So they named him after Hank Aaron.
So.
And on that note, I was going to congratulate Patrick. He's a new father. This March, of course, he had his first son and named him Henry after the great Henry Aaron. And
Sure did.
also like to point out, he's such a great Brewer fan, and he's recently named his dog after Cecil Cooper. He's got a dog named Cooper, too.
Yep.
So as a Brewer fan, you got to love a guy like that. So
my wife loves me because of that. So.
Yeah, so hopefully your wife's a big Brewer fan, too.
Of course.
All right, and for any of you fans that haven't had an opportunity to check out brewerfan.net, Patrick every year has some great draft coverage there. He's got profiles on a lot of the players eligible to be drafted, specifically some first-round ones, but he does extensive work on that. So you should, if you haven't had an opportunity to check that out, go ahead to brewerfan.net and check that out. So anyway, great discussion, guys, here on the amateur draft. We're looking forward to that this June. So stay tuned. We'll be right back, and we're going to have a prospect profile on son of former major leaguer Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn Jr., we're going to have him now a member of the Nashville Sounds. We'll be right back and have a prospect profile on Tony.
Okay, now we're going to take a look at Tony Gwynn, our second-round pick in 2003. We're going to take a look at some of his stats of the past 3 years since he's been in our minor league system. In 2003, he hit .280 with 1 home run and 33 RBIs, and he also had 14 stolen bases, and that was for Beloit. In 2004, for AA Huntsville, he hit .243 with 2 home runs, 37 RBIs, 34 stolen bases, and an on-base percentage of .318. And last year, which he was also at AA, he hit .271 with 1 home run, 41 RBIs, again 34 stolen bases, and a higher on-base percentage of .370. And now we're going to go to an interview. Vince was recently on location in Nashville, and we're going to go to an interview with him and Tony.
All right, everybody, this is Vince Travato with the Brew Crew Review here with Tony Gwynn Jr. Tony, thanks a lot for joining us, first of all. You're making the jump this year from AA to AAA. What kind of things are you looking for going into the year, and are you excited? And I guess what kind of opportunity do you see this as?
I'm definitely excited. I think this year is going to be a challenge, just as every other year is for me. Just trying to work on being consistent with the bat this year. As far as opportunity, if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, I'm here to prove that I can play at this level, and then hopefully open some more eyes and see what happens from there.
Now, you were assigned to the Brewers originally in spring training this year down in Maryvale. What kind of experience was that for you when you were with the big league team to open up camp?
It was awesome. I got to hang out with my buddies, Prince and Ricky, a little bit longer than usual, and just the whole experience, kicking it with the big league team is a lot of fun. Getting to work, getting to pick their brains about different things on the baseball field. It was an eye opener for me, and I definitely learned a lot from it.
Speaking of Prince and Ricky, have you talked to those guys since the season started, and what do they have to say about the start that the Brewers are having up in Milwaukee?
They're excited. I talked to Prince about a couple weeks ago, right when the season first started. I haven't talked to him since, but he seems to be getting on a roll just like Ricky. I mean, pretty much the whole team. Carlos is making nice plays out there. They're playing good defense, which is a big improvement from last year. And I'm just hoping they keep doing what they're doing.
Now, you and Prince have the shared experience of having a father, of course, who was a major league star. Tell me a little bit about that and what it was like to grow up in a house with your father. Is he giving you batting tips right now, or what does he talk to you about when it comes to baseball?
Yeah, he kind of let me go until I was about 17, doing my own thing, and after that, I started asking more questions, and he kind of threw more knowledge at me as I got older. And yeah, he still helps me now. As far as growing up in a baseball household, for me it was nothing different. It's probably just like everybody else and having their families around. You know, he was dad at home, and he was Tony Gwynn on the baseball field, so it wasn't that big of a deal to me.
All right, well, thanks a lot, and good luck with the season down here in AAA.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thanks, Vince. Again, that was on location in Nashville, Tennessee at Greer Stadium with Tony Gwynn Jr. Again, center fielder for the Milwaukee Brewers, drafted in the second round of 2003 draft. He's been putting up pretty decent numbers at AAA this year. What do you guys see Tony Gwynn Jr.'s role for the Milwaukee Brewers in the foreseeable future? How long before he makes possibly the big club, and what type of impact do you see him having at the major league level?
Well, I always kind of looked at Tony Gwynn as kind of a borderline prospect, maybe a cup of coffee. You know, he never hit for the average. His on-base percentage was always a little bit lower than you'd like for more of a slap-hitting, you know, speedster center fielder. He was always a really good defensive specialist. That's why I thought he'd have a chance at the major league level. But lately, he's really started to come around. It started last year. He hit 271 at Huntsville, and this year he's hitting around 290 after a good showing in spring training. His power numbers are starting to come around a little bit. He's got a few home runs. He's hitting more doubles. He's becoming a little bit more patient at the plate, and once again, his defense is another thing that could get him a look at the majors.
And I think we saw a little bit of an interview with Gary Pettis, the hitting coach in Nashville in our last episode. He obviously was a former player, very similar in my mind to Tony Gwynn Jr., very kind of light hitting in a way. And it's hard to say Tony Gwynn and light hitting because obviously his father was like over 300 hitter and a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I kind of see him as that borderline fourth outfielder as well. But what are your thoughts, Patrick, on that?
Same thing. You know, the power just hasn't been there throughout his career. He's shown a little bit more this year, but I just don't think it's going to be there at the big league level for him to be an everyday player. You know, while he's fast, he's not, you know, like Juan Pierre fast. He's not going to be bringing up 30, 40, 50 stolen bases year after year. So he's got to do something a little bit better for him to be an everyday big leaguer.
But with that being said, he would maybe make an ideal fourth outfielder. That very reason, you know, someone who can come in, pinch hit, pinch run, and also play some good late inning defensive replacement at not only center but possibly even in the corners if necessary. So hopefully he does make an impact with up in the big club. You see him talk about his good friend Prince and of course Ricky Weeks. So I'm sure he'd love to join those guys at the Brewers and when they're going to be making their runs at a few championships in the next 5 years. So hopefully, so yeah, Tony Gwynn Jr. Very good guy down there at AAA, and so. Again, keep your eyes out. Check out the Nashville Sounds website at nashvillesounds.com. They have up-to-date stats on him all the time. So it's always nice to kind of follow those guys and they get to the major leagues. So again, that was our prospect profile on Tony Gwynn Jr. And now we'll take a short break and we'll come back with a little segment, Stepping Up to the Plate, and then we'll wrap up today's show. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with our rapid-fire segment called Stepping Up to the Plate. We're going to go through 9 quick questions, one per inning here, around the horn with, of course, Patrick, Ebert, and Brandon. Let's see, top of the first, here's our first question. Should the Brewers trade for a starting pitcher before the end of June? Patrick?
For the end of June? Yes. If they're in contention, yes.
Yes.
I think they're going to go with the in-house option. I'm going to say no. They'll probably hope their pitchers get healthy, but hopefully by the trading deadline. All right, let's go to the second inning here. If you were Mark Antanasio, owner of the Brewers, what is the type of contract extension would you be willing to get to offer Carlos Lee as far as length and money?
3 years, $30 million.
I'd say 3 years, $30 million sounds about right.
I'm going to say 3 years up to $36 million. All right, top of the third. How much time should the Brewers give Ricky Weeks at second base before considering a position switch?
Through this year.
Okay.
2 years.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a year and a half. By the All-Star break next year, they might have to consider if his errors don't go down. But I believe he will make it. Okay, top of the fourth. What round will the Brewers first draft a high school pitcher in this year's draft? Patrick.
Oh, that's a good question. I'll say third.
All right.
Second.
Yeah, I'll go 6. All right, fifth inning. In the Brewer bullpen, who do you prefer working as a setup man for Turnbow in the 8th inning? Who do you trust more, Matt Wise or Jose Capian?
Matt Wise.
Wise.
Darn, I was hoping one would say Capian, but I also like Wise a little bit better. But Capian, I think, does have a good future as a bullpen, as a setup guy, or possibly a future closer. Okay, the 6th inning, the Brewer, fill in this blank. The Brewers' leadoff hitter in 2008 to start the season will be
Ricky Weeks.
Ricky Weeks.
I'll say Dave Krenzel. That'll be wrong, but oh well. Okay, here's a non-Brewer one real quick. Will Barry Bonds hold the career home run record before he retires?
No, he will not.
Nope, can't walk. Can barely walk now.
Oh, he walks a lot. He just can't run. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to also say no. He's going to come up short of Hank, and I'll be glad about that. Anyway, 8th inning. The Brewers' center fielder of the future is, again, the fill-in-the-blank one, beyond 2000, this year, of course, center fielder of the future, meaning,
I'm a little less convinced on Ricky Weeks at second, so I'm going to say Ricky Weeks in center.
Okay.
Bill Hall.
Bill Hall. That's a good question. I'm just going to go on a limb and say Nelson Cruz. Maybe we'll switch them if we don't trade him. All right, last inning here. Come August, which other teams will join the Brewers in the NL wildcard race? Who do you see as being contenders besides the Brewers, of course, in the NL wildcard race this year? You can name, anywhere from 3 to 5 teams that you think will be up there come August.
Say you got the Dodgers in the West, you got the Astros in the Central, and the Braves and Mets will be fighting it out in the East.
Okay.
I was thinking the Braves and the Astros are probably going to be our most serious contenders.
Okay, I agree. I think the Mets will maybe run away with that division. I don't know. But I do like the Phillies and the Braves. I don't think are going to go anywhere. They're going to be around. Astros, depending on the Rocket coming back, I think they're going to be there almost either way with their pitching, along with the Brewers. And from the West, I almost think that there might not be one. I think that they're the best team in that division will win the division, but hopefully be behind the other teams in the wild card race. So hopefully they'll only have a couple of teams to combat. So that sweep of the Phillies recently in May, I think, might turn out to be huge come August or September, hopefully. But anyway, all right, well, good discussion, guys. So let's wrap up, though, again, with stepping up to the plate. Again, I want to thank our special guests on our draft preview this month, and that's Patrick Ebert from BrewerFan.net and PerfectGame.org. Also, he does a lot of work on BrewerFan.net. You should definitely go check that out. And you might better know him as Colby Jack on BrewerFan.net. So go check that stuff out. And also, they come up in June here. The BrewerFan.net has their annual Fan Fest. You want to tell a little bit more about that, Patrick?
Yeah, every year a bunch of Brewer fans from our website get together, and we just go out to a game and have some fun. Eat some food, drink some beer, and get to know each other a little bit better. So it's on June 17th this year. I believe that's against the Indians. It's a Saturday. Just visit the site. There should be a link on the home page. Just follow that link and get the details.
Great. Also, by the way, check out our website too, brewcreview.com. Brandon's got some stuff under the minor league there. He's got recently did the top 30 future Brewers, and also we'll have your little mock draft, see how that turns out too on that website. So check that out. So anyway, again, thanks again for joining us both, and until next time, go Brewers, and remember to stay classy, Wisconsin.